Somebody had asked me some 3 months ago what I would think to be a central task for the community of Cross of Nails and for reconciliation. I would have said Brexit is one of our biggest challenges, and a lot of reconciliation has to be done there. We need the healing of the wounds of Brexit, both within the UK and also between the UK and its European neighbours. Actually, I had the great pleasure and privilege to preach at Coventry Cathedral at the end of the International Reps meeting, beginning of March. And this was exactly what I preached about. How times have changed. Our meeting in Coventry seems so far away now. Suddenly, totally other issues are much more pressing. COVID-19 is on our mind. And quite rightly, most of the thoughts of the week in the last weeks offered thoughts about the current global health and economic crisis. I would like to add another notion. In the first letter of John, we can read, "In this is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the atoning sacrifice for our sins. Beloved, since God loved us so much, we also ought to love one another." In the German Bible, it is actually translated, "God sent his Son that we are reconciled for our sins." God's reconciling love comes first. Because of this love, we are called to love one another. And how does this look like? I think the Bible shows quite clearly and repeatedly that love is not just a touchy feeling, being nice to another person or caring about somebody. Yes, love is a very intimate relationship and affection to another person. But love is also more. It is also interpersonal. Love is aware of the structural realities of this world. A love that emanates out of God's love is a love that enfolds every human being and the whole world. Such a love can be called righteousness or justice. Just remember the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are those who hunger for and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Love that flows out of God's reconciling love is a love that hungers and thirsts for righteousness, for justice. Such a love is solidarity with the deprived, those who are struggling or are in need. And with that, I come back to COVID-19 and also to Europe, actually. Being ambassadors of reconciliation, of God's reconciling love, actually points us to Europe. Reconcilers must appeal and stand up for solidarity in Europe. How can we Germans, for example, show and practice solidarity with the people of Italy and Spain that were so much harder hit by the virus than we were? How can we support our brothers and sisters in Great Britain, even after they left that very special net of connectedness that should be at the core of the European Union? Solidarity in Europe is so important in order to fight new resentments and prejudices that might raise new walls and borders. And solidarity certainly is not only about Europe. In most European countries, the numbers of new infections are going down. We are able to enjoy the first easings of lockdown, and economies are starting the very painful first steps out into economic recovery. I even was able to get a haircut last week for the first time. But many other parts of the world are still to face the worst yet, and their healthcare systems and economies might be less able to fight an international pandemic and its economic consequences. The community of Cross of Nails is an international network, so we are well aware how COVID-19 affects South Africa, India, or the US, for example. How can we as reconcilers show our love and solidarity with our brothers and sisters in the other parts of that one world? A tiny first step maybe was that we, as a small group, came together each Friday for a video conference to share our stories, our excitements, our troubles, and to pray together the litany of reconciliation. It was quite touching, and it felt good that we spoke a bit together. People from Coventry, from Germany, from Austria, even from South Africa. We came together that way and stayed together, showed solidarity, at least a little bit. But which other, maybe even more important steps have to follow? So for this Pentecost Sunday, I pray that our reconciling God will send his Spirit to fill us with hunger and thirst for righteousness, for justice, and for solidarity in this global health and economic crisis.